Okay. I'll accept a motion to open the meeting.
Make a motion to open the meeting.
Second motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 7:32. Okay, so this is a meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. It's January 29th, 2015. And we are here tonight to hear some presentations about the remaining 2015 community preservation proposals. But before we start, I just want to have a moment of silence for Dick Shaka. He was a long-time volunteer with the town, held many offices, and certainly I think he's going to be missed by all. So let's just have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. So the committee, everyone is here tonight. Claire wasn't feeling well, so she told me that she wasn't going to be here tonight, and I'm not sure where Joe is, but hopefully he'll come in. So this evening, we're ready to hear from 3 more presentations. One from the library, one from community housing, and one from conservation. And if you recall, last week we heard on the previous 4, and those were the, let's see.
Here comes Joe.
Okay, good.
Good evening.
Okay, so the ones we heard from last week were the Washington Park revitalization, the Groveland Community Trail, Phase 2, VZ Park improvements to a historic building, and the entrance restoration for the Riverview Cemetery. So tonight, what we're going to do is hear these presentations, and then the committee is going to talk a little bit about finances again, pick up where we left off, and then we'll take a vote on each proposal for recommending it to town meeting on what we think they should do. So we're going to start with the library. The library proposal. And I'm going to turn it over to whomever.
To the chairman of the board of trustees.
Okay.
Hi. So I'm Elizabeth Burton, the library trustees chairman of the board. And I'm going to introduce Diana Cummings, Cumming, no S, as the project manager for the proposal for the LSTA grant and for the community preservation application.
I have another item to add to the proposal. That
Thank you.
And I brought other members of the board of trustees too, by the way. This is Anne Marie Crockett and Lori LeBlanc and Carlos Del Castillo.
what I just handed out is some drawings from a design consultant and for shelving. But I'll read a little bit about what our intention is first. The library received a $4,200 LSTA grant through the Mass Board of Library Commissioners for the Northeast Document Conservation Center to come and assess our historical collection for restoration and preservation. We have done this on November 17th, 2014. They provided us with a thorough guide on how to create, house, organize, and preserve our historical documents and items, but they were not allowed to state a particular company, product, or costs we could expect. We have provided their report with their recommendations. There are short-term priorities, mid-term priorities, and long-term or ongoing activities. Our grant application is largely based on the findings of the Northeast Document Conservation Center's report findings. They're specific as to the areas we are lacking and what is needed in terms of how we need to go about storing our historic items in order to best preserve them, as well as utilize them for display. We also contacted several companies to try to get design ideas and budgetary guidelines. Only one company has responded thus far. Lauren Tower, who has archival experience and has been a tremendous resource in this process. Kathy Prunier, a longtime library trustee, and I have worked in libraries for about 20 years or more. All met with a representative of Dunnigan Systems, which is what you have in front of you, to go over the needs of the library as we saw fit and according to the Northeast Document Conservation Center's recommendations. She was thorough in measuring each area in her questions and going over our options. She sent the plans and we went over them via a conference call to finalize the initial plan. We realized that if this project is approved, we will get additional estimates for designs and materials. By receiving municipal support, it allows us to apply for more state and federal grants. Over the years, the library has served to house historical documents, photographs, and objects, giving the public access to town history, family genealogy, and other important information that without the library, such history might have been lost. We have approximately 400 bound volumes that include personal records, 25 serials, approximately 15 linear feet of archival material, 4 historical maps, and over 150 photographs and other oversized pieces of artwork, several reels of microfilm, Super 8mm film, and videotape reels, and school records. Townspeople often come to the library to do research, and they also come to the library to donate materials and objects. These materials go back centuries and are invaluable for community history, and the library is a centralized site with free access to all, where members of the community can research public records. Funding for staff training is an integral part of the plan for preservation, as that is critical for storage, handling, and recording the materials and effectively and securely. Our goal is to have the availability to have a site for the public that is secure, that is inventoried, that's accessible for research and personal interest, that will increase the space we currently have available for further donations of materials of historic and genealogical value that have previously been inaccessible to members of the public, and that promotes the preservation of such materials for generations to come. So on the handout that I passed out, it gives some of the drawings of her renderings, and I'm going to also pass out some of the options that she did show us with her company, so you can take a peek. One of the options is this filing cabinet. This is one that actually rotates, and she was talking about this for a spot on yeah, when you go and enter in the back hall. So if you go to the first
Would be marked
of
as
the
page
small,
1.
yeah, if you look on the small, it says X2 unit. You can see that. it would go there, is what she's thinking. The U2, U1, excuse me, U1, U2, U3, that runs on a track. And it, she was talking about 4-post shelving on there. And the C1, C2, that also runs on a track, and that would have cantilever shelving. I have, it's just a kind of sample of what a tracking system looks like. This is a wood example, so we won't be going that way. That would be more expensive, I'm sure. And if everyone wants a copy, there are plenty. But what it does is there's a stationary back, and then you have 2 or 3 different bookshelves in front that can be moved to make it easy to access, and it takes up not much space at all.
And the space that they're speaking about is our back hallway, which is currently just dead storage, not used for, it's a combination of hodgepodge, cleaning stuff and leftover things and secondary, and some historical stuff
And
there.
some historical stuff, which at this point it's very hard to maneuver, and at this point is also not inventoried and not organized. So that is a.
It's amazing. I am very amazing.
It's a very, big goal, and, looking forward to it.
And this hopefully will also allow for display cases around the library that can be changed at times for people to come in. And it's not just Groveland people, we have people from all over the country that come in looking for records, so.
It's also, having this, getting this grant from the LSTA was part of our long-range plan that's available on the town website under the library page, that actually is being completed in 2015. So historical documents were on our radar to, start moving this whole process forward, and in spite of not having a director, we've been doing a great job moving it forward, and I appreciate that from the staff and from the trustees and the people that are involved in moving it forward. So applying for the municipal grants, municipal money, as Diana said, will allow us to apply for further grants from the different agencies, which we plan to also do.
And that even goes to the federal level with some grants for
Right.
preservation.
And on page 24 of the binder is a picture. They did a great job of adding pictures. It's the primary, the two primary file cabinets that currently have a lot, or the most, of our historical documents. There are 2 filing cabinets. And then other things are, in various other places.
And in that space where those filing cabinets are, she also did another drawing which has this C3 and C4. So there would be another tracking system there that can be with the cantilever shelving, but so there'll be a lot more shelf space there as well.
So
And
in that,
where is this there?
This is in the office area,
South,
so
okay.
we're in it, and that's where those are, it's against the wall. And right now, there's also shelving beside the filing cabinets, but only one side of it's accessible.
Anything else?
The environmental areas, I see you're gonna have two dehumidifiers. Is there any other treatments to lighting or any other things that you're going to do to the space to bring it under control?
Ultimately, yes.
Yes, they have recommendations for lighting, recommendations for climate control. They feel that right at the present time, what they recommend for dehumidifiers would take care of the problem. But this also includes, as you'll see going through this, an excellent professional cleaning,
Right.
It's in the last one.
first and foremost.
The circle, broke rope.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
I have a question. The 10,400 or so that's going to be allocated for mold remediation, is that for the removal of existing mold, the prevention of future mold, or both?
Yes, we have no confirmed answer on mold being there now.
Oh,
Servpro doesn't feel it's yet started, but it needs prevention.
So it's a preventative.
It's a preventative and it's a thorough, complete
good.
professional cleaning
It's
of
very
the
good.
archives
That's very
Yeah.
good.
quality.
Given what the Haverhill police are going through right now,
Mhm.
it's very.
And we have mold issues at the school, and once you have that, it's very difficult to get rid of. My next question, if the full amount is made available to the group, that will position you to get grants, I heard that. Grants to do additional work in this area or other areas?
This area, well, I assume it's this area.
Grants for advancing the preservation of our
So it's still
historical
for preservation
documents.
purposes?
I
Thank you.
think Bob Guttel can speak to a lot of this.
Yeah, the
And he's
next,
dying.
the next step is this is a wonderful project, this is a fantastic project that should have been done ages ago. And the storage of these historic Groveland materials is just long overdue. You got some priceless materials there, absolutely. To the town of Groveland, they're just irreplaceable, and they're one of a kind, and they were given to you as to preserve them and to conserve them and to take care of them. And so the next step to me is archival work that needs to then be done. So stabilizing the collection, getting it conserved, preserved, and restored is what this project is about, and it's the first step, and it really needs to be done. But the next thing would be then to the larger issue of what's there. What have you got?
Inventory and
Exactly,
catalog.
and that's the archive.
We have to have the ability to have the products to put them in as we're categorizing and cataloging, and some knowledge of handling them prior.
That's why the training piece to this
Exactly.
is
Yes.
wonderful. Yeah, I'm so pleased that that's what you're doing. You're gonna,
And Bob
Training
enlightened me to the Simmons College program, where they have archive internists that come in with a professional internist. And we're looking into that now, and it's something we can really afford, which is good. We've never been able to apply for this because it's never been available, the historical side of community preservation, has it, Mike?
Yeah, it has.
Yes.
Oh, it has?
Yeah.
Okay. Never seemed to
Well, but
fit what we were looking for.
I think it's a step-by-step process. We had to have a long-range plan to
That's
apply
right.
for the LSTA grant. We had to have a LSTA grant and then apply for a municipal.
Right.
I mean, we could have applied without the LSTA, but
right.
you sort of can't have, you have to be ready. So
Right.
that we were
Institutionally,
ready.
you've got to be
Yes,
ready.
we
to
were
do
ready.
this, right. And
And
now
we
you
were
are.
ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a plan because of the LSTA grant, you now have a plan, so now hopefully this will provide some funding towards doing some of the things that grant called for.
I think we're pretty frugal. I think we can stretch that an awfully long way. And we're also supplemented with as many grants as we could possibly do on the federal and state level.
Mhm.
Until we catalog, we're not gonna know exactly what we have. But they did an excellent job. They were there, 2 people for an entire day. I was with them, Diana was with them. And they looked at everything. They took pictures of everything we have. They found things that we didn't know.
Yes.
There's still one box of things we can't find, well, we will find. But they were amazing to talk to, they were brilliant, and they had so many good resources, and you see these pages of excellent resources that they've given us. Bob has said that he'd kind of,
Can't wait till you get started.
I can't wait till we're done.
And some of your materials will have to go out shop.
Oh,
Out your
definitely.
shop. You won't be able to
Definitely.
do them, and that's where the Northeast Document Conservation Center will be so important to you.
Exactly.
But be ready for the price tag.
Oh,
They
right.
are
But
awfully
we can get,
expensive.
we can get an awful lot of items digitized if we decided to go that way. They're not so crazy about digitization. I don't think you are either.
The artifact, the actual document,
the manuscript has value. I mean,
Mhm.
once you see, this is the original source material,
Mhm.
it's valuable in and of itself. Yes, digitization is great for, and I use it extensively, but it's, you know, for armchair historians sitting in their bunny slippers at home, they can, you know, get access to that stuff, but it's.
But to actually see it.
But the actual, yeah, that's the resource that really needs to be
Oh,
conserved.
we have a
and
love of
protected.
it, and we have hours that we're open, that it's accessible to people. It could even, I mean, with the right handling and the right training, some things could even be brought into the schools to coincide with their history, and just the kids to see that, or field trips for the kids to come to the library and actually see actual journals. We have a journal from someone who was in the Civil War, and it's got a lot of covers on it. It's amazing, amazing stuff.
There are three things that can destroy our treasures in a disaster: fire, smoke, and water. Does this system help out in any of those ways at all? With the most sensitive documents of all? I mean, within reason. My son worked at the Commonwealth Museum, and he went into vacuum rooms that they don't even have sprinklers. They have devices that suck out all the air if there's a fire. He found the original document, the 1850 incorporation document of Groveland there, and I said, what happens in a fire? He says, I wouldn't want to be in there because they take out all the air. I realized that we're not going to spend $50 million to protect our. What do we get for 50,000?
I've already talked to the fire chief. He's offered to come over and do a whole training of staff and volunteers and trustees. Sprinklers are not recommended, I don't believe. So we do the very best we can, and the fire chief has offered to cooperate with us to work and train a lot.
They do have recommendations in their proposal about what you do in emergency situations and how to handle that as well. And so that will be part of the training.
Are any of these storage cabinets fireproof though? Don't get that impression that.
I didn't see anything fireproof. No.
Right.
And I don't know if we need to have something fireproof for the most sensitive.
Well, that would be coming, this is only one estimate we've got so far. That would be coming as we go deeper into estimates, and we add and subtract different components of this.
Maybe some grant money can be pulled for that, I don't know.
Well, it's
From
either that or you have a document management plan. It's like the Woodbury collection. Where is the Woodbury collection? It's not accessible to the public.
No, it isn't.
No, and it shouldn't be.
No, it's
I
in
mean,
fireboxes.
Right, so the more people that handle the material, the more risk you're taking that something's gonna happen to it. It may be that that's where the digitization comes in, but.
And we have copies of all the Woodbury collection, not wonderful copies, but
No.
copies.
But that
What
could,
is the Woodbury?
this is, when everybody talks about the Woodbury collection, the Langley Adams Library, it's the work that Dr. Woodbury did to document every house in Rowan. And he went around every house, took a photograph, and did a biographical sketch, a history of each one of the houses. And people come from far and wide, and anybody who buys a historic house here in Groveland, they usually stop by your
Stop at the
place to
library.
find
Yeah,
out
I've
what the
seen them
history
on the
of my
shelf,
house.
but I actually, the copies.
But that's the tip of the iceberg. When you peel the onion back and you look at what Dr. Woodbury did, he did a whole bunch of other things too. And I'm still just uncovering that. I mean, everybody knows or should know about the inscriptions. He copied down the old slate section on the cemetery. He went around and copied all the inscriptions off of all the headstones that are down there.
And the original book, in the collection of the
Right.
library.
He did history of all the Revolutionary War soldiers in Groveland from East Bradford that were in the Revolutionary War and published it. And he did 2 or 3 other books that he actually published. But and I'm writing into it with your GAR records. He took the descriptive records, one of your books that you have, the book was falling apart so badly and nobody could read it. I mean, it was very much in danger of disintegrating. He copied the whole thing over again into another descriptive book. So Woodbury was quite an individual in terms of history of the town.
Maybe you can quickly summarize for our viewers at home why they should be voting for this if we pass it on to town meeting. important that we bring everybody on board.
It's our history, it's our
Yes.
absolute history.
Right,
It can't be replaced. Nobody has it in their cellars or attic that I know of. It's our absolute history of our town. It's where children grew up, where maybe their parents lived. It's, Bob could do it better.
They're one of a kind, what you have is irreplaceable. You have the originals. And they're very perishable, and you look at the pictures of those two filing cabinets, it's
Oh,
like,
I didn't want you
wow.
to see them.
I was gonna say that this, copy of the application is available at the library, so people can come in and look at the report and the, application.
it will also be on the community preservation website, so.
So you're gonna scan it?
Yes, it's already scanned.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. It's, I can't say enough about it, I don't know, I mean, it's, we just haven't had the money for years to do this, the grants weren't even available to do this kind of thing before. And if we didn't have a long-range plan, they would be available to us now. But, now's the opportunity, now's the time. And it's a great investment in the history of Groveland, and in the future of Groveland.
Right, and I think, personally, I think that this is the type of thing that, one of the types of things that community preservation is meant to fulfill. It's a hard thing to ask, town budgets to fund historical preservation, but if we don't find a way to do it, we will end up with no history and no ability to look back. So, I think that it's certainly a worthwhile project.
And our goal is not to make it things that are hidden away and locked away. Our goal is to make it accessible to everyone. Anybody who comes from out of town or grew up here or has a history here or who's relative, it's gonna be there, it's gonna be available in some form with training for staff to know how to handle it and to show it and to display it. So I'm excited about it. I hope it all helps.
Good.
And,
Well, thank you very much for coming this evening, all of you for coming and voicing your support for it. And what we're gonna do now is move on to the other two, and then we will be talking about funding. So you're certainly welcome to stay if you'd like, or not.
we were at our whole meeting yesterday. Moving on. Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, the next presentation will be funding for a planning project, affordable housing development, submitted by the Affordable Housing Committee. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Bruce Adams.
Okay, Bruce Adams, Affordable Housing Committee. You may recall that the town approved and the CPA committee approved $70,000 a year ago, at town meeting, I think it was, to essentially start the planning process to build some affordable housing in town. And we subsequently hired a consultant to assist us with that evaluation and creating what's called a pro forma, or a financial evaluation, to see what was feasible to build. So we're about halfway through that. That $70,000 was really two parts. The first part was the conceptual plan, and then if it looked like we had a good concept, then we move on to doing a more detailed site plan. So we're partway into the detailed site plan, but haven't completed it yet. But what our consultant came up with was a bit of a surprise to us. We had originally talked about elderly housing, a mix of affordable units and potentially some market rate units. And for those of you that don't know, in order to we'll kind of back up and give you a little background. The goal for affordable housing overall is to have about 10% of your stock in town to be affordable. Currently, there's about I think about 2,200 housing units in town, so that would be about 220 units, which is the goal for the state. We currently have about 80, so we're only about a third of the way, maybe 3 to 4% of what our total unit count should be. So you've heard about 40Bs. A lot of 40Bs come in and they'll propose a mix of affordable and market rate units. And the way the state regulations work is that if you propose a rental property, or project rather, even though you might have 80% their market rate and 20% affordable, you get to count all those units as affordable. So what we were thinking is that potentially we could propose a 20 to 30 unit elderly housing over 55 complex adjacent to the River Pines. Get full credit for those, even though only 20% would be affordable. Now, that doesn't really meet what we as the Affordable Housing Committee are tasked to do, which is to provide affordable housing, but it does help to meet the town's goal. So, so we asked our consultants to look at that, and what they found was that a project in that range of size would cost somewhere between $7 to $10 million to build, and that we'd end up with having to put in town funds in excess of $3 million to build it. So we didn't feel that asking the town to fund an affordable housing project for $3 million when we're only getting, 6 or 8 affordable units, was really what we were tasked to do. So we then asked our consultant to look at it further and see what was really buildable potentially with a minimal financial component from the town. So what they came up with is a plan that looks like it'll work. And the way that it works is that essentially the more units that are affordable by really low income people, the more money you can get from different state agencies for grants and things like that. Because that's the component that's really missing, so that's where the government's putting its money. So what they came up with was a 27 unit complex with 8 one-bedroom, 12 two-bedroom, and 7 three-bedroom units. 11 of the units would be rented to people where their income was no higher than 50% of the average median income. 10 units would be at 60% of average or lower, and then 6 units would be 30%. So for somebody that's making 30% of the average median income in the area is pretty low. So it basically would allow people to have a place to live, which they wouldn't otherwise. There's no housing in Groveland, that's really affordable to that extent. A project like this, they've estimated, this particular one would, and the estimates are a little, I would say they're on the high side, they're for public construction. So they're estimating about just under $400,000 per unit, or about $10 million. They estimate that we could get low-income housing tax credits to the tune of that would pay for about 75% of that. And with some other grant funding, the net cost to the town would be about $750,000. So essentially what happens is that we get some grant money, $750,000 in town money, which would likely come from 2 sources: the inclusionary zoning fund, which developers in town are funding, and I forget how much money is in that. Do you know about?
No, I don't.
I want to say it's
3 or 4.
Yeah, $300,000 or $400,000, and then the balance might come from CPA, or any other source. That has yet to be determined. But and then a portion would also come from rents. So any rents that do come in would help to pay for maintenance and upkeep and management, and paying off the mortgage. So they've provided a pro forma, and that's in the back of the application package, which shows the money coming in and the assumptions on the money going out. So it does show the balance. So, our next steps at this point are to, finish the work that was, essentially as part of the original, CPA funding of last year. Complete that, which will give us, a preliminary site plan. And there'll be some public hearings and meetings along the way on that, and then that would be followed by a design of a project. So that's what we're here for right now, is to seed that design cost of about $325,000. The other aspect of this is, I think I mentioned that, so the parcel of land that we're looking at is about 3/4 of an acre. It sits in kind of in the back of the parking lot behind the firehouse and up adjacent to the River Pines affordable, or the River Pines housing complex that sits there right now. In the back of the proposal package is a diagram of where that site sits, and also two different concepts on how 27 units could fit on that site. And the exact siting and how it would fit, the exact number of units, 27 is really the maximum that they felt could fit, but it could be something a little less. There are issues of proximity to the existing housing, where's parking gonna fit, proximity to, and setbacks on existing lot lines, things like that.
I'm sorry, I
Stuff we
didn't
worked
hear you
through.
first. I didn't hear what you just said. There are questions about what?
Well, that the final, what we submitted with the proposal package is the first concept on how 27 unit complex could fit on the site. The exact number and how those fit on the site is, I would say, a little bit in flux. So I wouldn't take this drawing as gospel. It's one of many different ideas. The exact siting has yet to be determined and agreed through a public input process, with townspeople, abutters, and any other people that want to have a voice in this whole process.
And where is the driveway from?
Well, that's, like I say, these were just concepts by an architect on where driveway would come in. They had one that came in off the cul-de-sac, which said, probably not a good idea. Another one came off the parking lot, might not be a good idea. Another one that comes off of the entrance road in the River Pines might work. But those all have to be discussed and vetted, and, they need to be looked at from a public safety standpoint, and to make sure they work. So, we're really in the beginning stages. We're looking for whether the concept is financially feasible, and it looks like it is with the mix that we're proposing. It's contingent on a couple of things. The selectmen have to agree that parcel could be used for affordable housing, because right now it's just a parcel of land that the town owns. So that'll be on the agenda, I believe, for February 9th. The public hearings and public meetings have to happen with regard to the mix of affordability and how it sits on the site. Then the project has to be designed, and in order to build it, we need to get a lot of money from the state and feds, and that's probably gonna be the hardest part, so.
Now, are you talking about DHCD? Who are you contacting DHCD?
Our consultant has looked at a lot of different funding sources.
So you're not looking at, you're certainly not looking at federal HUD,
Probably not, but
because they're not
Well,
building. That's
right,
what
but-
River Pines is federal,
Correct.
it's all federal. And there's 3 state units that come under the Groveland Housing Authority, but there's been several discussions at meetings of boards of commissioners over the past couple of years about passing over to a larger housing authority out of town, because they take an incredible amount of time and work and maintenance there. One part-time executive director paid for by HUD.
Right, so, and if this does move forward and is eventually built, would be an opportunity to kind of coalesce all of the town's affordable units. It would be, this little complex plus those other 3 units under one kind of umbrella for
It means
management
the state
potentially.
with the federal would stay separate.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, there's ways that those could be, also put under the same management umbrella with cost split. There might be some advantages to doing that. Maybe not, that's really beyond what I
HUD
know
doesn't
about.
combine with anyone, so, that doesn't happen, and that was explained in a meeting. There's only one thing here, two things. First of all, we do have 58 units at River Pines,
Okay.
1 and 2 bedrooms. And it says here that the community support, we will continue to work closely with the Groveland Housing Authority. And although the Groveland Housing Authority supports affordable housing, we don't work closely. I mean, that was explained at a meeting, the one meeting that we've had, with Denise McClure. I have the minutes of that meeting. The executive director, that it wouldn't be combined.
I didn't think we said it would.
Okay, I thought you just said it could only.
I said it could. I didn't say it would.
So, I just wanted to make that clear that there's been no close association. This is the one meeting.
Well, I think the intention here is that the Affordable Housing Committee would like to work closely in the sense of making sure that you are fully involved, fully knowledgeable, fully aware of what
definitely.
we're doing. I think that's what we mean by work closely.
If you want to be.
Yeah, because we're interested in affordable housing, it's just that HUD is a different player.
If the total, cost for the town is $750, you said?
Yes. Yeah, that would be for the project construction.
Right.
what it goes
That's
to.
an addition, that's separate from the 325.
Correct, yes, that is, yeah.
And if the goal here is to have this completed by the end of the year, what would be appropriate then? Just 325 or the full million?
Really, we're looking for 325 right now, to get it going.
No construction at this point.
Right, but if you're gonna get the project completed by the end of this year, how do we, no?
No, that's
Didn't
not.
that say that? Didn't I?
It really depends on the funding and the tax credits and things like that, getting that all worked out. From what we understand, that depends a lot on who else is applying, how you fit relative to others, that you're competing against for funding,
Sure.
how much is available from the government, things like that, so.
So realistically, what would we hope to achieve this year if everything works out?
With the additional $325,000, we would then solicit an engineer, architect to design the project,
Okay.
such that it would be ready to either put it out to bid or to hand off to a developer who could build it.
And when would the building actually begin? Best case scenario.
Best case scenario, if we got all our funding, it would probably start, I would say, no sooner than a year from now. So probably in the earliest spring of 2016.
And your
Okay.
plans are by the same architect that did the plans back in 2005, Abacus?
Yeah, Abacus did the design for the 2-family on Gardner Street.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they came, there were four firms that submitted proposals, 4 or 5, to do this initial planning work, and Abacus clearly had the best idea of what we were looking for, how to implement it. They had the history in the town, so they kind of hit on all fronts, so, and the price was right for them too.
And this orange line would be,
The dashed orange line,
yeah,
that's the property line.
okay, so it goes up along here as well?
No,
No,
Well, it's,
those are just property lines, it looks
I
like.
see, okay.
Yeah,
All property lines.
yeah, they may not be exact,
Okay,
they may be a few feet off. They're compiling right now, they did an actual survey of the property relative to the buildings, that wasn't
So by this
This
plan,
application.
each unit gets one parking space, even 2 and 3 bedroom units.
That's right, according to this plan. And that's,
And this is the total green space.
what's green is green space.
So if you began building in June of 2016, then we can, in July of 2016 would be the next fiscal year, we would have monies available to
Yeah.
complete the project. That would be,
Right, so
that would
they
be the
would-
next cycle.
They would come, depending upon obviously the whole funding structure of it, they could potentially come back the
next year
next
with this
round
one. Right.
for building funds.
That's our hope, is that we're ready to do that
If
then.
you build it in June, then you,
Yeah,
we, as early as July 1, we
Right.
could release money.
yeah.
Got it.
And that's probably,
That's what I was getting at. Where do
Yeah.
we, when do we apply the other 7 if we can get it to you?
yeah, and
Everything
and
is
again,
going-
if, we'll see, we'll see what we have for the inclusion. I would imagine that we would use all of the inclusionary zoning funds that are available, and then really look to CPA for the balance.
So the 70,000 spent now, so far, has been obviously well spent, because it's led us to this
Yeah.
point where we can now go to the next phase, really.
So there are a lot of sort of grayness in this, you know, their estimate is based on a certain market rate of rent, a certain construction cost,
Assumptions,
assumptions on how much money we can get, the affordable mortgage. You know, if rents are a little bit higher, and the construction costs are a little lower, you know, we might come and say we, you know, like, say, several $100,000 in CPA money, but may not actually need it. And it could go the other way, you know, it might be a little bit more, but, as far as a concept, this is what we're looking at right now. So we do envision coming back, and our plan is for, you know, about another $300,000 or $400,000 in CPA money. So in the end, if all works out according to plan, for about $800,000 of CPA money in the end.
And inclusionary money.
Inclusion, and, well, but another 400,000 in inclusionary, for about $1.2 million in total. We could build 24 units or 27 units of affordable housing that's truly affordable for, well, really for anybody. We can't, as I understand it, we can't earmark that, so to speak, for Groveland residents. It's for anybody that needs it, so.
But that's okay, that satisfies the town's requirements.
Right.
If we're working towards the necessary
Show the
percentage.
pictures of one of the
Yeah,
concepts of what the building
yeah.
might look like.
So this was a unit that was, was shown by the Abacus, a similar project. I think this was in Cambridge. And the way it's laid out is they're on the bottom floor are 1-bedroom flats, and those are all handicapped accessible. And some are 2-bedroom, and then above those are more kind of townhouse, 2 and 3-bedroom units. And they're, you know, they're built in long townhouse kind of blocks, but these have different roof lines and ornamentation to kind of break up the mass of the units. So, you know, we're not looking for, you know, for something that's got a flat wall. So that was just one concept that's kind of wood frame, it matched that neighborhood. You know, another option that we talked about was brick that would match, you know, the brick of all the surrounding buildings, at least on the town side. So there's different architectural, and that's where the cost can kind of change. You know, because brick is a little more expensive, you know, something that's wood or composite might be a little less.
So the town would own the complex.
That's the plan right now, yeah.
So you actually have 3 levels.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and is there a basement underneath? this?
No,
Okay.
that first unit's essentially at grade.
Okay.
So the units above would have stairs that would go, and you know, those would be the multiple family, 2 and 3 bedroom kind of units. So they'd have to be almost like the upper floors of a traditional house, I guess you'd say. And again, those are just concepts, they're just design concepts of what it might look like.
We did ask them to take a look at a kind of community center or senior center and to incorporate that into the site. What they found was that the site is really so small
Yeah.
that it really doesn't fit unless you take out, 6 or 8 units.
And that's not,
And
yeah.
at that point, you're paying more, getting less, so it really didn't fit. If the site was bigger, maybe twice that size, it would have been a good fit, but.
And there's no other town-owned land that would work on?
We've been, looking around and, not really.
No.
The only other option that I brought up at one time, and I think it went over kind of like a lead balloon, was to build it adjacent to the library on the Pines, but.
Right, where the hill got
where the
taken
hill
down,
got
they
taken
went
down.
along there.
Yeah, but that didn't really fly, but, that was another option, with land that the town owned. There are other areas, but, the nice thing about this is it's very close to all our core facilities, so you've got the library, you've got playing fields, you've got, police and fire, so it lends itself to, to being there. The next best place is to take something like this and put it more downtown, but there just isn't any land out that way that we came across that would work for it, so.
We surveyed the whole town, and if you
Yeah.
look at the affordable housing plan itself, the housing plan, we listed out all the properties that were potentials, but the limiting factor is always sewers. Without sewers, you
Yeah,
can't
that's
do
right.
these high-density kinds of
That would be
projects.
South Groveland.
So was very limiting. The concern that I expressed at the meeting was, and we've been talking all along about senior housing, that this was, or what we've all been talking about is over 55, these are people who perhaps aren't of low enough income to be in Senior Pines, but would like to stay in Groveland, would like to continue to live here. And then you go to the funding sources, and this is where the shocker came, is what the state will give, what they're funding for housing is not what we want. And it's kind of like, so we went through this whole year-long process to develop a housing plan for the town to meet the needs of housing in the town of Groveland for our needs and what our people think we need, only to find out on the state level that they don't have the programs to support the kind of housing that we want to have. And it just concerns me personally that, now we're talking about 2 and 3 bedroom units here. We're talking about lots of children potentially. And how's that going to be received? And this is the public hearing, the public input piece of this that we desperately going to have to make this happen.
Well, unfortunately, there's the whole issue with 40Bs and whether or not we like that kind of housing, it will be forced down our throat. And so the whole idea with this is to at least be able to control the number of units, the location, and a few other things that we can't control under 40B. So I think that that's probably the biggest advantage of it is control and not necessarily cost or what we end up with, unfortunately.
And this leaves us short how many units?
Still another 100 units short, or more than that,
Yeah.
yeah. So it gets us another 1% toward our goal, a little more than 1, so.
I just have one question. If you've played around with the mixed sizes of, like, say, the bedroom sizes and stuff, would you be able to fit, say, almost more units but smaller, like 1 bedrooms, or is that not
Yeah,
as feasible, or how does that?
what happens, in order to obtain most of the funding, at least 65% of the units have to be two bedroom or a 3 bedroom,
Mhm.
2 or more.
They're dictating it to us.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so.
so they're,
That's where the need is.
That's
You
where
the
got-
need is.
You got all the
Yes.
single moms, all the broken families, you got all
Yeah.
of these families that are all busted up.
Yeah.
And they need affordable housing, and they
Yeah.
got kids.
Mm.
So that's where they're putting their money.
Mhm.
That's where the need is.
right,
Very well.
so,
All right,
where we're at.
thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last presentation is for the proposal for the Groveland Square planning. And I'm presenting it here to you. It's being presented, it's being put forth by the Conservation Commission because it comes under the category of open space. But the Conservation Commission is working very closely with the Board of Selectmen, and a few other committees, planning boards, and someone involved in it too, to move this ahead. And it addresses Groveland Square. You know, Groveland Square, if you've driven through it, you know that it's had much improvement and work over the last few days, up the last few years. Updating the roadway and sidewalks, a new bridge. Unfortunately, there's a certain parcel in the square that still needs work. It's sitting there and nothing is being done or planned with it, but it's a privately held site, so the town really has no ability to control what happens with it. It could sit that way for a number more years, unfortunately. So what this proposal presents is, it presents the ability to do 3 studies that would be necessary if the town were ever going to take control or purchase the property and do something with it. Almost, I would say 75% of the property is within the wetland buffer, so it has wetland issues. The property has been cut up, so it has to really be appraised. And finally, in 2005, the Groveland Square Study Committee put together a proposal. They were able to do some great work with the common and get that done, and the bridge integrated as it came into town. But this last site was also part of that plan, and so there are plans that address that parcel, but they need to be updated. So that's another item that would be part of this proposal. But the interesting thing about this proposal is that it may never happen. What this proposal is doing is setting aside money to do these studies and planning and architectural upgrades to the plan so that the town could move ahead if the town were to gain control of the property. So really what will have to happen is for the selectmen to pursue control of the property. And if they do obtain control of the property, purchase it or whatever, then we would have the funds in order to see really what could be done with it. What, could we actually do the plan that was put together for the Groveland Square Study Committee in 2005. And that, there's some pictures of that in the back of the plan, I believe.
This includes the post office, please?
Excuse me?
Include the post office,
Yes,
both the gas station.
yes. Yeah, so actually it's on page 7. These are the plans from 2005, which pretty much called for a huge parking lot, which wouldn't be CPA, we really couldn't spend CPA money on a parking lot, so we'd have to go back and have the plans redesigned a little bit to see what else we could use the property for, although some parking obviously would be beneficial to the square.
So my question is, the 3 components, the 3 studies consists of the appraisal, the full wetland study, and the update of plans for the refurbishment. And the way this is written, it says that these monies or these studies will not be done or even started unless we negotiate terms.
Right.
But my problem is, don't we need that appraisal first to be able to negotiate things?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so how do we approach a buyer and discuss what the property value is if we haven't appraised it?
Well, you can, the best way to do it is to sit down with the buyer, and we kind of know what we want to pay for it because it had a previous appraisal on it.
Okay,
And we can kind of make a guess on what, you know, a commercial property that size without getting a full appraisal on it. And as I say, we did get an appraisal done in 2008, so we know roughly what the property might be worth.
okay.
So we can take that and try to negotiate with the seller and say, you know, well, what were you interested in selling it for? And they're gonna, use the services of a real estate appraiser themselves to probably get an idea of what they think it's worth.
Unless we have somebody in the Board of Selectmen that would engage with the real estate agent, one thing I would ask you to consider is if either you or a committee of the Conservation Commission receive a special charge from the Board of Selectmen to engage with the real estate agent. I think that would be the best, because that also gives you the expertise, the knowledge of what we've already done with the study
Yes,
and the conservation requirements and so forth. Because
yes,
if, let's say that the chair, the board selected either me or Betty or Bill Dunn to go in there and call up the real estate and start having a conversation, do a fact finder. I will speak for myself, I would be at a loss in being able to understand the conservation, environmental aspects of the property. So it would be at an immediate disadvantage. Where someone like yourself, for example, would be more capable to negotiate with the real estate and ultimately the owner as to, you know, what would be a reasonable price, you know, for the property. So that's just an idea. You know, it's just, it could be done very easily with a special charge. You know?
sure.
I think, you know, you can be the agent of the Board of Selectmen. So,
Do we have an asking price? I'm sorry.
I
I'm sorry,
have
Michelle.
a question. Could the town not hire their own real estate independent broker or, you know, I mean, most brokers work on a commission and, you know, could we negotiate with a broker to work on the town's behalf to negotiate this? Are the people that own this land, are they even looking to sell?
It's been for sale for some time.
Okay, all right, I thought it was, but I wasn't sure.
yeah, it's been for sale for a while.
I mean, if it's for sale and they've got it, you know, listed on, you know, one of the major networks, then it might be, you know, wise if we get, you know, some sort of real estate broker or a lawyer, somebody working on our side of town, not to, you know,
No.
working in conjunction with all the committees that,
Right.
you know,
Right.
it really is, you know, conservation.
So a buyer's agent.
Yeah, working with a buyer's agent just as if you're working to buy a house or a condo or something else.
Well, that's
and-
another idea, like I said, because the problem is the impetus is on the Board of Selectmen to move forward with this. But I'm speaking just for myself, I think we're the weakest link,
Well,
even though we have the authority.
in our prior purchases, though, the selectmen were very active in speaking with some of the owners of the property, and they helped out, so, because of the relationship that they had with some of the people.
Okay.
So, you know, but there's a number of ways to do it. I think the bigger concern that I have, and, you know, I can speak with the selectmen, I think we've got some time scheduled anyway, is really the funding of the purchase. You know, are we gonna be coming back looking for CPA funds, or are there other funds that the selectmen may be able to put towards the purchase if that were the way to go?
So this would work if in fact the purchase goes through, then this would fund the
Yes,
studies. It
yes.
wouldn't be used if the purchase.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
This is See, I kinda like doing it this way, and Joe and I talked a little bit about this, and that's why I went in this direction, because typically what conservation does is, we'll go out, we'll get an appraisal first, because typically, any time we're gonna buy something, we're gonna be getting some kind of grant money. The grants all require an appraisal. This may or may not require an appraisal. So we thought, well, instead of spending any money up front, how about if we first try to negotiate a price and see if we could actually buy it before we go do a wetland study and everything else that goes along with that.
And this study here that was dated December 9th, can you explain to the committee, because we haven't had a full committee since,
Did we?
Fascinating.
I think we talked about that in
probably
a
last,
December meeting.
in the December meeting. Well,
Yeah,
let's-
this was the study that we
this was
paid for.
Through admin funds.
Yes.
And what does this study do?
Well, this study just brings up the issues of what's there. And it doesn't say how you would do something. Let's say you were gonna build a parking lot in a park or something there. It doesn't say exactly how you would do that, but it brings up some of the issues. You know, as I say, the property is 75% within the wetland buffer, the 100-foot buffer. It's totally within the 200-foot buffer, and there's a lot of timing issues. There's issues with how you deal with the current buildings that are on the property. You know, if you were gonna remove them, you couldn't just go in there and remove them all. You'd have to do it under a certain timing so that you could take advantage of different issues and waivers that you might be able to get. So that report gave us some very useful information to show that indeed the property could be used for what we're thinking of.
And what we're thinking of essentially is a small park on a bluff overlooking Merrimack River.
Yes.
With some parking.
Yes.
Is there any plans to keep the post office there, or?
No, well, that wasn't, if you notice what's in
Yeah, I
the-
noticed that there was
yeah.
no post office.
There's no building there, so
No
that
building.
was part of the plan, original plan was to remove the buildings completely. Because at that time, the gas station was still being used as a, you know, commercial site. I think we haven't really addressed it, but, you know, eventually both buildings probably would be removed, but maybe not right away.
I guess my other concern is, it seems like we're buying a lot of property in town between this and other property that's been bought in town.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any plans to, I don't know what this is currently valued at, but, through the town, we're collecting tax revenue on this. Do we have any plans to somehow mitigate this tax base that is somewhat deteriorating in town? Cause if we take out the buildings, then, you know, and we own the land, we're gonna lose out on that tax dollars. And if there's going to be a park there with a parking lot, I don't, you know, I'm hesitant to say, let's buy more land that it's kind of sitting there. Yes, we need to protect the conservation part of it, but we need to be mindful that somehow we need to, you know, whether it's, you know, maybe the post office, we keep the post office there, and if we collected rent from them, or something else. I mean, I think we need to be mindful that, you know,
Well-
I just, that's my biggest concern.
And people haven't seen the full hit of the last land purchase, they won't see that till next.
Well, I think the biggest concern that I have is this is a commercial property. We've never purchased, the properties that we've purchased, it's altogether a different thing. Whereas this is an active commercial property that we're collecting a good amount of taxes on.
Right.
The only question really is what plans does the owner have, and what developer might come in there? So, you know, I don't think we really wanna compete with commercial development on a commercial site.
Right.
It's really a matter of, you know, if, and that's where it goes back to the negotiation with the owner of the property, is really what are they looking to do with it? What interest have they got from other developers, or they just plan on having it sit there for the next 10 years doing nothing and being an eyesore?
Mhm.
You know, if that's their plan, then I think, you know, we've gotta think about, well, what could be done? And like you say, ideas like perhaps leaving one of the buildings there for a certain amount of period of time or whatever might be the smart way to go.
And just help fund the purchase, I mean, if we collected rent.
Right, that's.
You could offset, you know, I don't know how much it would cost, or what they're looking this out for, but to help offset, you know, any potential future bond,
Right,
you know, we need to, as Kathy said, we still haven't seen the hit on the tax bills from the Center Street properties that
Right.
we bought about a year
We're
or two
talking
ago.
about an average of $300 a household.
well, that, again, remember, you know, I was reading some things on Facebook today, but, you know, we did not purchase, the busing property with CPA funds. That's the number one, mistaken idea that I read. You know, that was funded by a bond, and, yes, that's
good to
true.
say it.
We haven't seen the effect of that. But we aren't gonna see the effect of the other two properties that we purchased, because those were purchased with grants and money that were already collected. So anyone who's out there saying, you know, that there's gonna be this huge hit to taxes because of Center Street purchases is wrong, you know. I'm not saying that there isn't gonna be a hit on the taxes, but it's not gonna be for all three properties, certainly not. So I think, you know, as CPA members, we wanna make sure that people understand that, and, you know, we work very hard to try to hold down the cost of, and the tax hit on some of these purchases. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So, any other questions on this one?
Looking at the page 7 map, is that true the way the property line goes back there to where this hypothetical gazebo would be? So does Norwood Insurance own, is that
No.
their property line?
No, actually, we own a parcel back there.
It's better shown on the last one, I think.
See this map here?
The page you on, Mike?
The town, it's on the second to last page.
Okay.
We own 10-1A.
Yes, 10-1A is owned by the town of Groveland. It's not owned by the abutter.
Yeah, so it's incorrectly shown.
Oh,
Right. I didn't notice that.
So, you know, the good thing about that is it gives a little bit more size to the purchase.
And for the park,
Yeah,
potentially.
put, you know, and if you're gonna put parking there, it enables you to put more parking and still have a good amount of open space that you use for a park.
One of the conceptual drawings that I saw from the bridge study was the issue of poor Norwood Insurance. They don't have any parking. And one of the ideas was that they would deed, or, you know, in terms of developing this property, would work with the layout and perhaps dedicate on the town side, if we were to successfully buy this, a few lots for Norwood Insurance. So, I mean, there's some potential relationship there. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's, I know they got a big problem too, as far as how does anybody do business with Norwood Insurance with just two
Pull
or
up
three.
and jump on you.
Yeah.
Well, you know, parking in the square is an issue.
It is.
And so,
It is.
that's another thing that this has to address, you know, and again, it isn't addressed by this proposal necessarily, but
Right.
it really goes to to the meat of why is the town of Groveland interested in buying this commercial lot?
So potentially an asset, this could be an asset from the standpoint of further developing or
Yes,
improving the commercial development in the center of town.
absolutely,
And there
absolutely.
might be some payback
I
there.
believe we lost 14 parking spaces because of the bridge, does that sound right?
I don't know about that.
That sounds an awful lot.
No, I don't think so.
There was like 2 or 3, I think, in front of the diner. I don't know if there was,
Wrong side, maybe. I don't know who told me that, or I heard that.
Yeah, well, it's,
Yeah, no,
Anybody who
the
frequents
planning
it,
board was saying that, remember when we
Planning board said
met with, Jim, he was
Jim
saying,
Frieder
he was
specifically said
saying,
14,
yeah,
I don't recall that, but.
but I don't know historically what he's talking, when is he talking? Is he talking 20 years ago? Or?
no, I think he's talking about the whole square between the common and the work that was done with the bridge and everything, that they lost 14 parking
Well,
spaces.
Jim does start his arguments from 1960s, so.
alright, so yeah, we need a starting point of when did we lose
I
the
mean,
slots
there was
from-
parking right in front
So
of the
we've had
diner,
shorter
there was 2 or
meetings.
3 slots right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, I'm like, alright, there are 3 slots there, maybe, that's about
We've
it.
had shorter meetings though, because we've started in 1980 lately. Hope he's watching this.
Here comes
Yeah, that was
Ryan.
narrow.
And then when they put the trees in, they
Remember
took a
Heck's
lot of parking
Diner?
spaces out there. But that was not the part of the bridge, that was part of Bell Park.
When did you have Heck's Diner? I saw a picture of that. It was
Yeah,
just,
Heck
just perched right across, right on the edge of that bluff or where it was. Do you know when that was?
looked like a Quonset hut.
Okay, so last time I had passed out the finance update, the status report, and so I went and I updated a few things on here after our last meeting. So I figured we just would close this out. I'll tell you what changed and what got updated. So on the first page is the same exact report I gave you last week, except that the amount of money that we appropriated for the 4 categories was incorrect. Almost all of those numbers were incorrect because I got those from the state, the Community Preservation Coalition website, and they had some projects in the mix that were actually canceled. So these numbers, when I added them all up from the projects, made a lot more sense, because I couldn't see where previously we had over 1.8 million for open space. In actuality, when I added it all up, it was really only 1.455. So I did that with all the other numbers by looking at all the projects. So I believe these numbers are a better idea on what has been spent over the last 10 years for each category. So that's the first thing that got updated. And let's see what else. If you go to the next page, I updated the project as we went through some of the presentations. If you recall, last time we agreed to reduce the, do you have one of these?
Right, okay.
We agreed to reduce the Washington Park request to 220,000, so I changed that. And I also put the notes in about each one's matching. The library wanted to have that included, that the LSTA grant was part of it, so that's already been a match. And then some of the other match notes in there, so that's in there. Put this also up on the website, or if I didn't do it today, I will put it up there tonight, so the public can look at it, because I think this is a good report of the status, not only the current status, but the status of CPA since its inception. And, let's see, the last page is new. The last page is every project that actually was either completed or started, and some of the more recent ones are still ongoing or haven't been started yet, but these are all active. There were all of the canceled projects, and there really weren't that many, but there were a few. There was a large project that was voted for the purchase of the Webster property that we never did. That was canceled. So those kind of projects are removed. These are all active projects. So it shows exactly what's been voted and how much was spent in what category that money, that project came under. And let's see, if you go back to the first page, under projections, and we certainly don't need to decide this tonight, but just some thinking. I was speaking last week with Michelle, and we were talking about what are we gonna do in the future. Right now, we have a total available funds of approximately 1.7, almost $1.8 million. And if we vote all of the projects tonight, that's gonna bring us down to, let's see, what is it? It's gonna bring us down to 913,843 in our CPA funds, which is, that's no small amount, certainly, but we are starting to seriously diminish the amount of funds that we've collected over the years and the match that we've had. So one idea is to put a limit on the projects going forward. So one way of doing that is we collect approximately $380,000 between Groveland and the state match in any typical year. So we could divide the remaining money up and still be spending on projects about $500,000 a year, which is no small amount, over the next 7 years. What that does is it makes it so we're not going to, we would only do this if we put that in our request for proposals and we tell people that you may not get funded even though you come in with a great project, because we are only gonna spend $500,000 this year, no matter what. And also, it limits, it may limit the amount that we put into a particular project. We may say, well, we can only fund your 50% of your project, so you might need to go back and look for more matching funds, say, or something like that. But I don't want to do that unless we actually say that in our request for proposal. We did not say that this year. This year, we went out and we looked for more projects, more ideas from our different stakeholders, and I think that went very well. As you see, we got 7 very good proposals. So, I think in the future, if we were gonna do that kind of thing, we need to change a little bit how we were asking for people to submit.
Okay, now like when we were discussing buying Busing's property,
Yes,
from us, we talked about bonding it, so if something
Yes.
came in with a big project, could we bond it
yes,
using this money?
yes, that's possible, yes. That's always an option.
You know,
We've
because I
never
hate to
done
have
it.
like the affordable housing project come in and exhausting the whole fund.
Right, right,
for that year, so that nobody else is eligible.
right.
Yeah.
And see, as we are diminishing the amount, I think it makes more sense for a larger project to bond it rather than to, just spend it all.
Bonded with the CPA funds?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Or you can,
No,
or
no,
maybe any,
oh, I'm sorry.
or maybe any project over a certain amount should just be bonded.
Mm.
They set a low threshold.
Some of it depends upon the bonding capability of the town and,
Any project that's-
it's not easy to bond something for, say, $200,000. It's not feasible.
Right.
But, if the town were bonding a number of things and they had, the potential to borrow, $1 million for a number of other things, then you might be able to package a few smaller things into that bond.
I think it's just cognizant that we know how much about
Yes,
if we.
yes,
Cause I know, Robert, you said something about there was like another $200,000 to $300,000 worth of historical stuff last week that needs to be done in town, or is that just
No,
cemetery?
that was the road, I was just,
Oh, okay.
trying to shake everybody up. Those will not be done with CPA,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, but I know it sounds like library has other stuff that they might, I don't know if that would all fall under this. Obviously,
Lots of
affordable housing, there's rail trail stuff, so.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, It seems like there's just a lot of, I was just thinking with Mike, it's like, wow, we have a lot of stuff this year, and it seems like this is,
And
Kind of
many
in
are
a-
open-ended, that we know they're coming back.
yeah,
But in the end, isn't the town going to vote for each individual one, or is this gonna be a package deal?
No, it's gonna be individual.
Individual.
One,
Yeah.
so
oh, yeah,
just because we're approving it, doesn't mean the town's going to vote
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
in the
Right.
end,
right,
so.
right.
But if we're gonna get behind all of them, or any of them,
Mm.
we wanna be very clear about that at town meeting.
But we don't
Right.
have to make that decision tonight, right, Mike?
No,
It's
Yeah,
something
we
to
wanna be
think
able to
about.
say favorable action to the library and to the
Right.
affordable and to, we wanna be very clear about that.
because see, what I'm reading, and I don't think it's a large minority I don't think it's a majority of people, I think it's a small minority, but they're asking these kind of questions, like, well, how much money do you have, and what are you planning on spending it on? And, those are the kind of questions that I think we have to, going forward, be thinking about more. We know a lot about what's out there now, what people are thinking of doing. We know about the rail trail, what they're thinking of doing. We know about the cemetery, about the library. We know there are a lot of needs out there that need to be met. And so I think it's important for us to be thinking long-term about how we could wisely spend the CPA money, and we kinda know how much we've got to spend, we've roughly got about $380,000 per year. So, pretty soon, even if we didn't do this, pretty soon, that's all we would be able to spend. So, we have to kinda think about, things like that. So, anyway, you can take that and think about it and also use it for anyone who's asking us questions. And like I say, I'm gonna put that up on the website with all the proposals.
It's a nice piece of work, too.
Yeah,
I don't know how long it
well,
took you to put this together before.
It took a lot of time to go through the history stuff that I got from Denise and Greg.
Mhm.
But they've done a good job of tracking it, so that's good.
Mike, could you give the website?
Yes, it's grovelandma.com, and if you go on that page, you'll see under committees, the Groveland Community Preservation Committee, and you get to our webpage, and on there will be all of these items. Okay, so the next item is to vote on each one of these projects. We have 7 projects. And so what I would like to do is have a motion to accept it in a second, then we'll do a quick discussion and vote on whether we want to fund it or not. Okay, so the first, we'll take them in order of the presentation. So the first one was the Groveland Community Trail. They're requesting $150,000. Do I have a motion on that one?
Move favorable action for community, Groveland Community Trail Phase 2 for $150,000.
Second for discussion.
Okay. All right. So this is, this is a phase 2, so we've already kind of bought into doing this. I think there's a lot of support from town residents. It really didn't have a problem passing at town meeting last year, so I really think that the town is behind it. And the other thing that I like about it is that, if we proceed down this road and complete the plans, that it looks very good, they're gonna get a significant amount of money from the state, up to $4 to $5 million to complete it, which is good. And it's another case where we've got CPA is seed money to do something like this. Without CPA, we wouldn't even be thinking of doing it. We wouldn't have any way to do this kind of thing. So, I'm happy to support it myself.
I have one question, I
Yes.
guess. So it sounds like we get the money once we complete the rail trail, or do we get the money for the construction? Like, how does the cash flow, I guess, work? Is that
Sure.
from a financial perspective?
I'm gonna let Mike Davis is here, and he
Okay.
can do a better job of answering that question than I can, so.
Specifically, these requested dollars?
Not
Or in
these,
general?
but like in general for the whole 4 to 5 million, it sounds like we're gonna get this 4 to 5 million, but is the town gonna have to outlay the 4 to 5 million and we get reimbursed after the fact? Or it goes along, they pay
Yeah.
for it as we spend, basically,
Yep.
they just cut the checks.
Yeah, it's not a
So we're-
reimbursement.
It's not a reimbursement, so,
Yep, we're in 150, we're asking for another 150.
right,
We may come back for the other on-road portion for 200, so all in, 550 is kind of the ballpark. That's the cap on Groveland CPA investment. That runs concurrently with Mass DOT, public grants, and the funding that is paid from the state, which is the process that we're getting very close to formally being
and then you
in.
talked last week, so it would be mainly volunteers that would help maintain it. I was thinking about this afterwards. I mean, are we gonna have lights along the trail? Is it gonna be unlit? Who's gonna plow it? I mean,
They're
is it
almost
just?
always unlit, and in general, in the winter, they're not plowed, so it's occasional mowing of the side edges, and then usually a broom cleaner, which I think highway department may even have one of those that they just run up and down the trail once every couple of weeks to keep the gravel up, but it really is minimal maintenance. It's, tends
Has
to
that
be
been
somewhat
cleared
natural.
with the highway department?
Yeah, has that been discussed, or is this gonna be outside volunteers? Cause I know,
Well, I don't think it has, I mean, it's either that or you hire somebody to do it 3 times a year.
right,
But most highway departments
Have people
that
that work
have
for
that.
them.
yeah, have people that work for them and they do
have
it,
that
okay.
capability can do it fairly quickly. Now,
Yeah.
I suppose if,
And we will have folks from other towns at these public forums to share what's
Yeah.
happening in Danvers, in Georgetown. So I mean, it's not like we're,
Oh yeah, we're not the first, so we
Absolutely.
kinda can rely on this, I just, alright,
but the only thing, I guess, to answer your specific question about lighting, plowing, it's a town decision.
that's
So
tough.
the
they're usually not
25%
plowed, they're
design.
usually not lit.
So,
That's the deal.
yeah.
And then I guess the only other question I would have is, would we need increased police patrol or anything? Cause part of it's on road, part of it's off road. you know, obviously these are other questions that I think you need
So-
to still get answers to, but.
So
Yeah,
the
that's
public
not-
safety debate is, so we have the police chief, he's confirmed he's out of town, he's gonna send his deputy chief to the board of selectmen meeting that we're gonna be at.
Okay.
So this is where things are really ramping up, and that's where these funds that we're requesting will carry that as we,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just like, I seem like I have a lot of questions that,
super questions, really good questions that will,
I guess
The
that's,
public is gonna hit you with anyways.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what this 150 is gonna help determine the answers to all these questions.
Yep.
Okay. Alright.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, I guess we're ready to vote then. All in favor of the Groveland Community Trail funding for $150,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Abstain, okay. The next one, so that passes unanimously. The next one is the Washington Park improvements for $220,000. Is there a motion on that one?
I'd like to make a motion for the Washington Park.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
I have one question. Seems like we're gonna use volunteers to help assemble this. Do we need to take out any sort of like liability insurance on that or anything, or was that, I don't think that was factored in, was that factored in to that whole proposal or anything?
we had talked about it when it first came.
Right, but you figure they've been doing this stuff for years down there anyways, without any additional
Yeah,
insurance.
Yeah,
I helped build the playground down back here, and
yeah,
that was done, and there was a lot of volunteers, and I think it's all covered.
okay, alright,
But it's worth checking.
yeah,
I don't think it's a big deal.
I didn't think so, but.
I think it's a great project. I'm excited about it because if you recall, Erin came to our meeting back in December or in October, I think, actually, and she was kind of thinking, well, the playground needs a little bit of repairs. It was more in repair mode, but after we kind of told her that we can't do maintenance on a place, I think coming back with this, and you might say, well, gee whiz, now we're spending a lot more money than probably what she was thinking then, but these are things that the park really needs, and so I'm excited about the actual revitalization of Washington Park.
I've
It's
been
not
down there and looked
it's
at it,
not
and
just
it
a
really needs it.
quick
Yeah.
repair job, that's what's been
Does.
done over the years, many times, a quick repair job.
Patch it up.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be a real revitalization of the park. Okay. So, all in favor of the Washington Park improvements for $220,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Abstain? Okay, unanimously it passes. Okay, next is the Riverview Cemetery, and that is the request to restore the entrance for $75,000.
I make a motion to accept that, I think it's an excellent plan. Well
Second.
done, well thought out, well presented.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Pam, sorry. Okay, any discussion on that? It's another one of those things that we take for granted, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
We drive by there all the time, and we just think it's always gonna be there,
Not gonna crash
And
down.
like the library, it's our history.
Yes.
Yep, it really is.
Yep.
I know I walked by it and it looks, like it's showing its age.
Yes,
We
it's-
all are.
it's something that we wouldn't be happy if all of a sudden that someday it fell down, right?
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor of the Riverview Cemetery project for $75,000, say aye.
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 Opposed? the next one is the VZ Park project for improvements to the historic building there for a total of $17,500. Okay, do I have a motion on this one?
Yeah, make a motion.
A second.
Okay. Any discussion on this one? You know, I feel like, you know, VZ Park is another place where we could spend a lot of money. But what we try to do there at VZ Park is really limited. We do tons of things with volunteers, and the rest of it gets paid for by the rents that get collected. Last year, we spent almost $15,000 just renovating one of the buildings there that gets rented out.
And that was done by all volunteers.
And that was done by all volunteers, you know. Pam was there cleaning the floor. I was painting, they had conservation people there cleaning, fixing the windows. So we don't like to ask for money, but these are three things in the historic main part of the building there that I think will make a significant difference to the operating costs of those buildings, so.
I think they're good improvements that will help protect the asset.
Right, right,
Without those, we might lose it.
Right.
Hate to see.
yes. Okay, so I guess we're ready to vote. So all in favor of the VZ Park project for $17,500, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Abstain, okay, unanimous. Okay, next is the library historic documents preservation for $50,998.
You could ask for
We just
$200.
moved
Oh.
I know, that might not be really hard here.
I really like round numbers. I'll move that for 51,000.
Yes, I'd say
I'll
that's a
second the
good
motion.
idea. It'll make the math a lot
You just get a
easier.
bonus, Kath.
You didn't ask for it.
I'm gonna pin those $2 up there in the floor.
Don't spend that all on one thing.
Motion to approve?
Yes, yeah, we got a motion and we got it seconded for
Oh, is there a motion
51,000.
Oh, there was
Am I
something.
all right
Yeah.
to vote on this? I just wanna make
Oh,
sure
yeah,
that that's
yeah,
what's
yeah.
Because you are representing
You should
them
be reading
anyway.
Well,
those.
I'm
That's
here
good.
as a Groveland Housing Authority member, not a but I am, for all transparency, I'm
Yep.
It's
trustee of
like
the
Micah
library.
and making a do easy, yeah.
Any other discussion on it? We heard it tonight, it's exciting. I think it's exciting.
It's got to be done.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, unanimous pass. The next one is the affordable housing planning for $325,000.
I'll move that.
Second.
Third.
You want to vote?
And I'm gonna have to, when we vote, I'm gonna have to abstain on that, only because I'm a member of a 5-commission board.
Sure.
These plans haven't been seen by any of the residents who are affected by multifamily housing, so
Mhm.
right at their back door.
Sure.
And I would have to talk to the other commissioners about this,
Yeah.
only 1 out of 5.
Yep,
so.
that's fine, that's fine. You know, anyone who's been on this board for a while knows how much effort has been put in for finding something that can come under our mandate. You know, we have to set aside 10% of our CPA funds for community housing. So this is exciting because we started with $5,000 administrative expense. We funded $70,000 amount last year, and now we're coming forward, we're looking, so it's looking like, in reality, this is, we might really do something, and that's exciting. Okay, all in favor of the affordable housing planning project for $325,000, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and we have one
Abstention.
abstention, so it's 8, 7 yes, 1 abstain. Passes. Okay, and the last one is the the Groveland Square planning project for $21,000.
Move favorable action.
Second.
Any discussion on this one? Okay, we discussed it quite a bit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Abstain. Okay, unanimous. Okay, good. So, we've got 7 projects for the town meeting that will be putting warrant articles together and submitting to the selectmen.
You had reservations about the affordable housing piece, it didn't have board of selectmen approval. Should that
Oh, yes,
vote be modified, contingent on?
yes, yes, it should be. And the same with the Groveland Square planning one, same thing. Both of those,
I didn't realize there was a town component to that until tonight.
that's true. That one doesn't, that one wouldn't require it, no. So it's really just the, it's just the affordable housing one, so,
Was it Washington Park?
that
They
one
have
already,
letters of support.
they already got
Letters of
support.
support.
There was just the one?
Yes, so,
I know, I mentioned it last time, I forgot to do that tonight.
so,
Can you do, do a friendly amendment? That's the
yes,
vote?
yes.
Friendly amendment, subject to approval of the Board of Selectmen
Yes.
to make the land available.
I made the motion.
That was my motion, so amended my.
Who made the friendly amendment?
Yep, even though we already voted on it, but, is there a second on that amendment?
Second. Mike, Bob Guptill, that's that.
All right, so, that it's, all right, so the amended article is that, it will be subject to selectmen approval. So, first of all, let's vote on putting the amendment in. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, okay, and then, so Kathy, you're abstaining on this next one, right? Cause it's the affordable housing.
We're gonna revote the
Yeah.
affordable housing.
Yes, okay, so now we're gonna vote on the amendment that it's the project we're approving, pushing the project to town meeting as long as the selectmen approve the, use of that property since they control it. So all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, and one
One
abstention.
abstention.
Good, all right, great.
Mike, could you explain the process from here on? Just
Yes.
because you voted for the money,
Yes.
doesn't mean you have it.
Yes, absolutely. So, for the people watching on TV, what's the next step? Just because we voted these 7 projects and voted to spend CPA money, to potentially spend CPA money on the project, that doesn't mean anything. We are only a recommendation-based committee. So the next thing that has to happen is that we put warrant articles together for town meeting, we submit those, meeting the selectmen's deadline. And so then the selectmen will take those warrant articles and they'll vote to put them on the town warrant for the town meeting in April. That's a pretty standard process that the selectmen really are just gathering the warrant more than recommending or approving the particular items. Really, the most important thing that's gonna happen after this is that town meeting will have these seven warrant articles to look at and to examine closely and decide to vote on them, yea or nay. And so that's the people of Groveland. So the people watching this, it's important to educate yourselves, just like we educated ourselves. We read all these proposals, we discussed them. The same burden of proof, I would say, goes to the residents to go out there and read the proposals and decide.
Sorry to interrupt. We're leaving this, do you need the key to lock up?
Yes, yes. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. So, you know, as I say, these votes are really only enabling the residents to be able to decide themselves what they wanna do. So that's the process.
One more question.
Yes,
Does this come under the 10 taxpayer thing? Say the selectmen don't want one of your articles.
yes, right.
Explain
We
it.
could do that, yes, but we aren't. We have been, the selectmen have been very cooperative in taking our warrants and putting them on town meeting. But they could decide not to. It's rare, but they could decide not to do that. So then we would have to go back to the 10 citizen thing and take a vote to get them on there. But we've
Well,
never
if somebody
done-
wanted to submit a warrant, an article,
Yes,
and they had 10 taxpayers, they
yes,
could submit any article they wanted.
yes, right.
Yeah.
The last thing, I think, here, let's see. Okay, two things. I would like to propose that we send out a newsletter. Since we've got so many projects, we send out a newsletter summarizing the projects to all Groveland residents. And I estimate the cost of doing that is approximately $2,000 because we did that last 2 years ago in 2013 when we also had 7 projects that were on the docket for town meeting. So that would be from administrative funds and printed in Groveland and sent out by US mail.
What do we have in administrative funds?
We have about 40,000, I don't think it's on here, 41,000.
So does that go to all residents in town?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
In Georgetown, what they do is they take a letter and they put it in the light department bill and ship it out that way.
yep,
So when you get your light bill, you
Yeah.
get these letters.
yep. Well, either we're gonna use the light department's postal permit, cause I'm not addressing like I did the last time, all of them. We sent them out from stickers from the tax department. So we're either gonna use their postal permit or we're gonna put them in the, if I can do that, yeah.
Put it in the bill.
Well, except not everyone gets paper bills.
Right.
Yes, I know, that's the thing that I have to find out about, you know, is that really gonna work that well or not?
Could probably
How
put them
many
in-
people?
Could you put them in the when's the next tax bill go out? April 1st?
Yeah, that's another possibility, that's another possibility.
Or excise taxes too,
Mhm.
those come out sooner.
Those are probably too soon, but the tax bill's what, beginning of March?
Yes. Does that require a vote?
Yes, to spend that money.
Admin funds, right?
Yeah.
Motion to allocate $2,000 for the mailing fees and for mailing.
Is there a second on
Second.
that? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Abstain, okay. So we'll try to get that done Oh, yes, okay. The last thing is, do we think that we should have a meeting where we have all the project proponents present them at one time? We've done it in the past, where, you know, we'll have one night where the presenters come in and it's televised and people sometimes come in and listen in person. Or do we think the presentations that we've had at our meetings over the last 2 weeks would be enough?
I would think that being televised, that should be enough.
See, I was gonna say it would be nice maybe if people came out prior to town meeting, if they did have questions.
Yeah, that's
Maybe,
usually what we've done in the
like,
past.
almost like similar to candidates night,
Right.
if you could do it.
Have we ever gotten anybody to attend this?
2 or 3 people.
Alright, so we got 7 here, or 9, so.
It's a lot of people's time.
Yeah, they don't end up,
Without
yeah,
much, it would be nice if there was a
people,
way for people to ask questions, I mean,
unless we could somehow gather questions.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know how to do that.
Could
Exactly.
you make that part of the newsletter, just if you have any questions, come
Yeah.
up with some kind of a
Yeah.
contact, person as soon
Yeah.
as you yourself.
Like an email or
And
something.
drop it in, I don't know if we can make an email box, a town email box.
The meetings are on the internet. I was looking tonight.
Yep, yep. So we can also post a link to that on our site
Right,
that
right,
would get you to those 2
Question,
meetings.
Sure.
Q&A.
Yeah.
For tonight. For tonight and last night. So those are all good.
More input that way.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. I mean, it's easier to do that than it is to have those
Have
meetings,
everything, yeah.
have that meeting, it's
That's much
tricky.
more focused and we'll get the information out
Yeah,
to more people.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know, I mean, it's already, we've had the presentations and they've been televised. In the past, we didn't always have that. Okay, that's good, that's good.
I have one more thing.
Yes,
In the, once a year, Affordable Housing makes a request for, usually about $5,000 to hire Denise McCord LLC, who's our kind of manager of all our ongoing projects. So I'd like to do that again this year. And that's in the past has come out of administrative fee allocated for affordable housing, for community housing. And that's usually good for about a year for assistance.
Second motion.
yeah, because you don't really have any, affordable housing doesn't really have any staffing time from anybody. I mean,
Yeah, we found that without having somebody to manage us, we didn't do much.
yeah,
So, it helps Bob and I, right?
Almost a lot.
She keeps us on our feet and does all the coordination and make sure, and manages the consultant we
Yeah.
have too.
yeah,
So without her, we wouldn't be here today.
okay. Any other questions on that one then? All right, all in favor of, committing $5,000 from admin funds to the Affordable Housing Committee for management and assistance, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Abstain, okay. All right, last motion is to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Likewise.
Go show them the roof.